In video 1, you learnt that to establish a claim of negligence, 3 elements are necessary. Number 1, that the defendant owed the plaintiff a duty of care. Number 2, that the defendant breached this duty of care. And number 3, that the plaintiff suffered damage as a result of this breach of duty of care. In video 3, we examined the second element, breach of duty of care. In this video, we will examine the third element of negligence, damage caused by breach of duty of care. A court will only consider this third element if the plaintiff has proved the first 2 elements of negligence. To prove this third element, a plaintiff must show that damage was suffered, the damage was caused by the defendant's negligence, and the damage was not too remote from the defendant's negligent act. To prove that damage was suffered, a plaintiff generally needs to show that he or she has suffered one of the following: personal injury, physical damage to property, emotional harm such as nervous shock, or economic loss. When considering whether the damage was caused by the defendant's negligence, the court asks, did the defendant cause the harm or did someone else cause the harm? Consider this scenario. A person drinks some tea at home and then feels very ill. The person goes to the emergency department of a hospital complaining of being very sick. The doctor at the emergency department sends the person home and tells them to call their own doctor in the morning. The person dies during the night. The cause of this death is that he has accidentally consumed arsenic, a deadly poison, in his tea the previous night. The emergency department doctor owed this person of duty of care and has clearly breached his duty of care by sending the patient home. But when we ask the question, did the emergency department doctor cause the death of this person or did someone else cause the death? We find that the doctor has not caused the death because the patient would have died no matter what the emergency department doctor did, because arsenic is such a deadly poison. So in this case, a negligence action against the emergency department doctor would fail because the third element of negligence has not been shown. The final point to consider when deciding whether the plaintiff suffered damage as a result of a breach of duty of care is to consider whether the damage suffered was too remote from the defendant's negligent act. A good way of explaining this is to look at nervous shock. Consider this scenario. Fred is speeding and crashes into Bob's car, severely injuring Bob. When Bob's wife Alice sees Bob's injuries in the emergency department of the hospital, she suffers nervous shock. Her nervous shock happened shortly after Fred's dangerous driving, so Alice's damage, the nervous shock, is not too remote from the defendant, Fred's, negligent act. However, if Alice suffers the nervous shock 2 years after seeing her husband's injuries in an emergency department, then the court is likely to find the nervous shock was too remote from Bill's negligent driving. Now check your understanding of the third element of negligence, damages, by completing Negligence Quiz 4.